Welcome, everybody, to today's edition of the Seth Joyner Show. So much to go over. The Philadelphia Eagles fall unlikely, unanticipated to the New York Giants, 27-17. And at this point in time, this football team is in disarray. I can tell you with certainty, there's a lot of conversation out there about the Eagles still being in first place. My contention is to just stop it. Okay. This football team has got so many issues going on right now. The defense really struggled against Daniel Jones. Play calling was an issue on the defensive side of the ball. They had no kind of remedy for Daniel Jones running the football. And played extremely passive in the beginning of the game. And then, I think everybody felt like with a week off and the coaches being able to self-scout themselves and, the players getting some rest, that they were coming to this game ready to play a divisional foe. And I told a lot of people, I said, hey, be careful. They have to be careful with the New York Giants. The Giants beat, the Dallas Cowboys. Daniel Jones is playing better. I felt like, one of the keys to the game for me was to create early pressure to take his confidence away. They didn't do it. And the longer they let the Giants hang around, the more the Giants began to believe that they could actually win this game. And that's exactly what happened. So, to help me unpack all of this, I know in the promo that, my former draft mate, teammate, my brother, Keith Byers, is going to join me today. He is going to join me. But I also brought in a guy that's extremely close to the situation. Listen, he is my brother. He played with me, for years on the Eagles, as the Eagle Hall of Famer. He doubles with Merrill Reese as the voice of the Eagles on WIP. I'd like to bring in Mike Quick as well. Gentlemen, how you guys doing tonight?
Hey, doing great. Hey, man, you gave me an extra special gift with KB on here, man.
Well, good.
Hey,
good.
I feel the same way, Mike. I'm like, okay.
Oh, man.
I owe you a phone call, too.
Well,
yes, you owe me a call.
Well, we all owe each other a call. We all need to get together and play some golf real soon. No comment. Okay.
I want to. As long as I give me some strokes.
Man, it's too cold.
Hey, listen, man, next week is supposed to be, I think, at the end of the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday is supposed to be in the 60s, man. That's warm enough to play golf in Philly.
I think it's going to be mid-60 on Friday, Saturday here. So, yes. Come on over, KB.
They want me to play on Saturday. It's supposed to be like in the 60s, but the Buckeyes play at 12 o'clock. I said, I can't play. Y'all got 11 o'clock tea time. Buckeyes play at 12. No golf for me. I got to watch the Buckeyes.
I hear you, man. So, Mike, you're quick to it. You're close to it. Keith, I know you keep up with it. But in each one of you guys' opinion, starting with Mike, tell me what you see. And the 800-pound gorilla in the room is Carson Wentz, because everyone felt like with the bye week and the coaches having an opportunity, to kind of evaluate what happened the first half of the season.
Yeah.
They would be able to rectify some of the issues and some of the problems. And yet he came out and played just as lackluster on Sunday against the Giants as he did, the previous 7 games. What is the issue and what is the problem in your opinion?
Well, I think there are a lot of problems. There's no one problem that's going to fix this thing. The offensive line, I wasn't impressed with in certain situations, some of the calls that Doug made. I wasn't so impressed with the routes by some of the receivers. But I think Carson's first issue begins with not feeling comfortable with the protection that he's getting or should get at the offensive line. A couple of plays just go through my mind where I know he left the pocket too early. Had he stayed there for a fraction of a second, he would have guys coming open. But he didn't feel comfortable enough, though he had the room to stay there. He had the protection to stay there. He wasn't comfortable enough to do that and hit his targets. But he's certainly not playing his best football, and everybody knows that. And if you don't have good quarterback play, you don't win in this league. You just don't. Right.
Well, and before I get to you with your assessment, Keith, I will say this. This game was total domination, in my opinion, by the New York Giants, and this is why. When you begin to look at the offensive line play, and it is important, Carson is still missing guys that are open. He's missing opportunities, and that's a big deal. But at the other end of the spectrum, when you look at the offensive line, Doug had an opportunity early in the game to really utilize play action pass, bootlegs, and get Carson out the game. And I say that because the running backs were averaging almost 10 yards a carry, in the first quarter of that game. That's the time to go play action pass and to mix up your play calling to get your quarterback on the move. Everybody keeps talking about, he's sitting in the pocket. They need to get him on the move. That's all fine and dandy. But like you said, he has to operate from the pocket to begin with. Okay. And if he can operate from the pocket and they're running the ball well, then the play action comes into focus, and now they can do some different things. And Doug, in my opinion, did not help him one iota in the first quarter. They ran the ball successfully. It was almost like, okay, we proved we can run it. Now we're going to throw it to death. And that's exactly what it did. And once you did that, you put the offensive line in a position where they could not win.
Described to me, and I think every year with every football team, whether you're a championship team or not, the quicker you find your identity and who you are, then you have a chance to be successful. So offensively, I still don't know who the Eagles are. Like you just described, you come out, you're averaging almost 10 yards a carry in the first quarter. Like, why would you start running it? And then it's like, okay, we can only run the ball one or two times in a row. We got to throw. And that's not fine. But when you throw the football, especially early in the game, you have to get the quarterback catchable passes, and you got to have completions. Once you have completions, that other C word comes, confidence. Now you're confident. Now we can start throwing the ball, bootlegs, more down the field. But when your first pass down the field is over 15 yards, you're taking shots. Unless you for sure you're going to catch it. I've never been, a fan of that. I mean, it's okay once in a while, but, and his safety blanket is gone for a few more weeks with Zach Ertz, and I was looking at that. Hate to see anybody get hurt, but that's like a blessing in disguise where now Carson develop everyone else around you instead of always having to go to Zach Ertz. Hey, develop other targets, and, guys are going to, you can catch the ball and make plays for you.
Keith, you bring up an interesting point because I think I tweeted it yesterday or maybe even the day before during the game. You hear people always talk about identity crisis. People as individuals have identity crisis. I think the Eagles have an identity crisis because, what they want to be is a pass team. They want to throw the ball. But to Mike's point, when the quarterback is playing bad, and he's the one guy that can't play bad, and when you don't have good quarterback play, like he said, you don't have a shot, So if that's your identity and you're going to continue to try to force a round peg into a square hole, then this is what you get. My thing was, okay, it's pretty obvious that they can run the football when they commit to running the football. In the game on Sunday, as a total, they averaged passing the ball, they averaged 4.8 yards per pass. Right. 4.8 yards per pass. You know how low, well below the league average that is? But guess what they averaged running the football? With the four running backs, with the three running backs, they averaged 6.8 yards per carry. So now that kind of brings into focus what the identity crisis is, okay? And as a coach, you've got to be able to make that adjustment, okay? If you want to run the football, from a defensive perspective, listen to this. Buddy used to always say, okay, if you want to blitz and you want to rush the passer, you got to shut the run down first. Okay, you shut the run down, then you've earned the right to rush the passer, and you've earned the right for me to call blitzes. Okay, but if they're running the ball up your behind, you limit my ability to call what I really want to call. And Buddy always really wanted to be a pressure defensive coordinator. Okay, so if Doug has the running game at his disposal, okay, and identity-wise, that's who you are. Why not take advantage of who you are in order to be who you want to be? Because when you start running the ball effectively, then you can play action pass. You can run bootlegs. You can run misdirections. Now you can do all of those things that you want to do. But the minute that he feels like they've got the running game going, he feels like, okay, now, I can be who I want to be, and I'm going to call 5, 6, 7 pass plays in a row, and it winds up blowing up in his face every single time.
You want to have two hands. You want to be able to use two. If you take one hand away from me, hey, well, which hand is the ball in? Well, we know we only got one hand. But then you bring two of them. Are you going to run the ball? You're going to throw the ball. And you want to be able to have some diversity in your offense. And as a defensive player, what you just described, you want to take one of my hands away. Well, you can't run the ball. Now we get to pull our ears back and get after the quarterback. But as an offensive player, it's hard to block these guys just blitzing us all day long. Yeah. We want to have a running game. We want to have a change of pace to keep them off balance and who's going to impose whose will in the game the fastest. That's usually going to be the most successful. Like you just described, they run a court read option that now this generation of player, they grew up, defensive read option from the time they was in high school and college. And Danny Jones, he ran for 80 yards in the first game and just failed. And he should have had a touchdown. And he scored this year off the same play. I'm like, are you kidding me? That should never happen.
Keith, they had one call back too. He scored a touchdown on the same play the other direction, and they called it back because of a holding penalty. But I want to go back,
listen,
Mike, because
you're making too much sense. So you're explaining exactly what happened, but it's making too much sense. What you have to realize is, at Doug Peterson's core, he's going to throw the ball, and you're so right. They were having a lot of success running the ball, and the real wisdom is, let them stop this. Let's keep running the ball. And every now and then you throw in a little play action move, off this run. But that's not who Doug is. Doug is thinking all the time about how he's going to put the ball in the air, what grouping he's going to put on the field to throw the football, because that's who he is. Growing up under Andy Reid, and Andy Reid was very similar in his day, but Andy Reid is a guy now that does have the ability to change on the fly and do a lot of different things. And I think Eric Bieniemy really helps him in that respect. But Doug, I don't believe, has the same type of support beside him in terms of guys who can help him to navigate the games and the ins and outs of the game and making the adjustments at the right times within the football game.
Okay, Mike. So I hear what you're saying, and I've heard it. I've heard it 1,000 times. Okay, but when your team is sitting at 2-4-1 going into the bye week, okay, and you're leading a abysmal division, okay, how much, and your quarterback has struggled mightily, okay, do you keep banging your head against the wall? Do you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result? We know that the definition of that is insanity, and the thing that I give Andy Reid the most credit for is that, he was a pass-happy, pass-first type of guy. And maybe Eric Bieniemy does have some influence as far as that's concerned, okay? But the season is hanging in the balance for this football team. Your quarterback is shaken at his core. He has no confidence. All you got to do is watch the game. You can tell he has no confidence. Okay. So are you going to keep forcing a situation, Mike, that's not necessarily working just because that's who you are at your core? Are you willing to stand in front of the media week after week and take the calls? And I can tell he's starting to get, Doug is starting to get real ornery in his press conference.
Yep.
And I watch them all. Somebody suggested yesterday, when you put Jalen Hurts out on the field, Wouldn't it be a good idea to take Carson Wentz off so you're not playing 10 on 11? And wouldn't it be a good idea, to implement some pass plays, for Jalen Hurts so that he's not one-dimensional? I tweeted during the game, it's a wasted play if you put him out there and you don't let him throw the football. So my thing is, how long do you have to keep bumping your head against the wall before you realize that it's hard? There's not a pillow.
Listen, I told you you're making sense, but that doesn't mean it's going to change.
When you're talking, you make me think of one thing. And I was like, it's almost, I remember successful teams that I've been on. It's not how they play. It's how we play. And that's why I was mentioning identity. The Giants, like you said, should have been a winnable game. But if you got a New York Giant uniform, you're looking at the Eagles and what you saw thus far, you're like, man, we can get them. We should have had them the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like a struggle. Teams are struggling. They're counting W's when they see us now. Instead of us counting W's, it's like, okay, what's it going to take to be successful? Then another thing I was thinking, okay, how else do you develop confidence in your quarterback and in your team? Well, hey, what do I do good? That means chopping the playbook up. We're only going to run these plays. We're going to master these particular plays. And then as we get good at these, and then we will add more and more to it. Why go into a game plan with 40, 50, 60 plays, knowing good and darn well you're not going to call them up? And you're practicing this stuff. This practice what we are great at. The Washington football team for years, they were going to run counter OT. They won 3 Super Bowls doing that. And you knew when you played them, hey, you're going to have to stop it. You know who they are. When you played the Cowboys, doing Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman, they're going to run the ball and hit Jay Novacek and throw the ball to Michael Irvin. Teams with an identity. And when the Eagles won the Super Bowl a few years ago, they kept everybody off balance. But they were successful with the formula of, getting the ball to the playmakers' hands, they move in the chains, and then take shots as they came. Now, the 2020 version of the Eagles, I don't recognize them. I really don't. And by halfway of the season, where we're going into week 10 now, I should know who they are. And I just simply do not. And at the end of the day, right now, they're not a good football team. They still got 7 games to try to change it. But as of now, I don't see it.
Well, it's tough, man, because it's hard to sit back and hope for a team, that you have so much connection to, and you want them to be successful, and you're watching what they're doing, and you can't see the success. Keith, you talk about, Mike, I'll give you this I'll give you this case in point. Okay. I was always amazed at the matchup that you had with Darrell Green, because Darrell Green was no doubt a Hall of Fame cornerback.
Yep.
But you was like his kryptonite, man.
Yep.
So when you ran a slant and go on him, or you ran a double move on him, you knew you could get that because he was overly aggressive. Yep. And you would come back to the huddle, or you come to the sideline and you tell the offensive coordinator or the quarterback, what? Run it again. I got it.
Yep.
Okay. Why don't we see that? Why don't we see, Mike, when the Eagles have success with a play or formation,
yep,
you very rarely see them go back to that formation. And part of game planning, to me, when I'm studying an offense, and I'm preparing for a game, I'm looking at them formationally. Okay, the first thing I want to know is, what do they do in the running game out of this formation? Okay, and then from a coordination standpoint, okay, how are they trying to, what's the play action pass? What's the pass complement off of that same look?
Sure.
When I watch the Eagles offense, I don't see any coordination.
Yeah.
What I see is a head coach with a sheet that's this wide, that's probably scripted his first 15, and whether they have success or not, once he leaves that first 15, he never goes back to him. And he doesn't have his game plan built in a way where if he has success with, let's say, 5 of those plays, and he's put a star or highlighted those 5 plays, that he's got the complementary runs or passes off of those same formations and those same looks to be able to attack the defense. And to me, That's problematic. That's problematic for him as a play caller. We know he's not going to give up the play calling. And it's problematic for your quarterback because you're not giving him the best opportunity to succeed unless you're giving defenses similar looks, because defensive football is all about anticipation. Okay. Yeah. When you come out and you line up, I know what you like to run out of each formation if I've done my homework and I'm prepared. You know, depending on the down and distance, now I'm anticipating what you're doing. But when you don't have a counter offer, you know, a good running play or a good passing play, you know, you make my job as a defensive player easy.
I told you. Listen,
you know,
I told you.
If he had this big long play,
what?
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I told him he's making too much sense. I completely understand everything you're saying, and you know, and you talk about like back in the day, and I think things are so different now that they don't have the same communication. I don't think the receiver can go in the huddle and tell them like, this is what they're doing, let's do this. I don't know if they get to the sideline and they're able to do that, but yeah, we did that all the time. We talked about what's going on the field, and this is what I want to do because I know I got him there. But there seems not to be, as you said, a real rhyme or reason. So everything that we would run, there was a counter or there was an add-on to that to see if, okay, who's moving? And if I'm running a slant, is he going to jump the slant? Can I get a slant and go on him? If you're running a trap, or if you're running, if you're running a trap and somehow the defensive tackle's figured it out and he's going to run around that big block that ear hole block that he's going to get, when you start to figure things out like that, then you have to have a counter move. And I just don't see that happening.
How much is Carson Wentz involved in the game plan with Doug Peterson? Day, hopefully they spent some time together. And then Wednesday and Thursday, when you're in practice, you start to put in like, I like this, I don't like that, and that's why you practice full speed to see what works and what don't. And then when you finally agree on a game plan, and I'm like a smaller, condensed, set of plays. Now here comes Sunday, game day. By halftime, we already know what's working, what ain't working. And you got to be able to make those adjustments, and it has to be communication, not just, from the coaches to the players, but also from the players to the coaches. So you got to put your egos to the side and say, what can we do to be successful? Because at the end of the day, that's all we're going to be remembering. I love being on your show, Seth, but it's a lot better being on your show when they win.
Listen,
I can't wait this Sunday so they can win. I feel a lot better.
There is no doubt about it. Listen, man, when I'm watching my Twitter feed as the game is winding down, I get people, that post stuff, and they're like, "Man, I can't wait to watch post game to see."
Can't wait to see what Seth's going to say.
Yeah, but I don't enjoy beating the Eagles up. I don't enjoy beating the players up. I don't enjoy beating Doug and the staff up. I feel bad for them, But if you're being paid, what these guys are being paid as coaches to do. There are remedies. There are simple things that they can do to help the team improve. And it seems to me that, I've been around coaches before, and I've seen it happen 1,000 times. A lot of coaches believe that, this is my plan, this is my scheme, this is what we do. Okay. And what they don't realize is that, because Doug talked about execution in his post-game press conference, Mike. And Carson talked about execution in his post-game conference, okay? And here's the thing that I know about execution, okay? If execution isn't happening, there's a couple of things that's going on. Either A, your players aren't efficient and good enough to execute what it is that you want them to do. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. Two, they're not prepared in the way that they need to be. Because, it's not a reactive thing. They're thinking, and while they're thinking, the game is going on around them. And lastly, what you've asked them to do, they can't. The other team is just that much better than you. Okay. Yeah. Now you're not going to sit here and tell me. I refuse to believe that the New York Giants football team is that much better than the Philadelphia Eagles. So it only leaves you two things. You put together a game plan that your team can't physically perform, and they lack preparation in being ready on Sunday to take on the New York Giants, where they could play, with their minds free and their bodies just doing whatever it is that they need to do. See, to me, that's problematic. And Mike, you can keep saying, "Oh, I make too much sense," but what we're talking about a team that's 3 years removed from the Super Bowl. How can you descend that quickly, that fast? And I don't, I listen. I don't want to hear any more excuses about injuries. Even Doug said, "I don't want to hear any more excuses about injuries." In his press conference, he was like, "I don't want to hear anything about young guys. I don't want to hear anything about injuries." The Eagles are facing the same thing that everybody else across the league is facing, okay? Sure. It's up to the coaches to get your players up to them accountable to being prepared when they step on that field and to give maximum effort. I'm watching players that's not giving maximum effort. And I tweeted on Sunday, and I'll repeat it right here. On that goal line, when Fletcher Cox got double teamed and he got stood up, he gave up on the play, Mike. He gave up on the play. On goal line as a defensive tackle or nose guard, your job is to submarine and make sure that they don't push the line of scrimmage. He stood up and gave up. And you know what I tweeted? I said, don't y'all ever make the comparison with Fletcher Cox and Jerome Brown ever again. Don't you ever talk about Fletcher Cox in the same breath with Aaron Donald ever again. Because you know what those guys would have done? Those guys would have never gave up on a play like that. I don't want to hear it anymore. Okay. So how do you motivate these guys, to do what it is that they're being paid to do?
Motivator is, hey, your job. I can still, hear Buddy Ryan saying it's either you can't do it or you won't do it. Either way, I got to get rid of you. It's just that simple. So if they won't do what we're asking them to do, I got to get rid of you. Or if you can't do it, I certainly got to get rid of you and find somebody who will do what we want to do to be successful. It's just simply, I'm simplifying it, but it is simply, sometimes we make it too hard. And when you get to that point, whereas we got the right guy that can do the job, and he wants to do the job, now it goes back into the coaches. Now, what did you call? Did you set me up for failure, or did you set me up for success? And then that's where the coaches come in to work with the players. And now the coach's job is to maximize the player's ability. And the player's job is to give the coach all I can in that ability. That's like, I'm a running back. You're going to put me line me up against Darryl Green and say, run go routes all day. Hey, I can't be successful that way. And of course, they wouldn't do that. You're setting me up for failure. But the players that we have in position, they either can't do it or they won't do it. Either way, they got to go and that's the biggest motivator I know. Remember when we played, we had a bad day. Like, we're gonna come in here on Monday or Tuesday, and here we're trying out.
So, Seth, it's fun. You mentioned the Super Bowl year, and this is not that team. They're not as good as that team. They've dropped off a lot since then. And I think about then, Timmy Jernigan made a lot of plays opposite Fletcher Cox. Timmy Jernigan got in the backfield a lot. Was very disruptive, and he was a beast. And teams couldn't block him with one person. So one of the issues that Fletcher is having, and I know the play that you're talking about, and I saw what happened there. But one of the issues that he's having, so for already 3 quarters and more, every snap that he's on the field, he's pushing 600 pounds because he's got 2 guys on him all the time. And you're not getting the play from the other side so that he gets just a little bit of relief. Malik Jackson on the other side, Javon Hargrave, they are, they're getting paid a lot of money to do what they're doing, but they're just not they don't add a whole lot to the defense in my mind. When you look at, everybody's got to contribute. The D ends, they were kind of lost in that game. They didn't do a whole lot, but the D tackles, I was just really disappointed in those guys opposite Fletcher. Fletcher's going to have a play here or there, but the Giants tried to make sure that he wasn't much of a factor. And other than goal line, where they would double team Brandon Graham as well, they put two sets of hands on him. Other than that, those were the other guys weren't having to fight those double teams like that.
Well, I've been talking about this for years, Mike, because I said the same exact thing. I can see Fletcher getting tired during the game. And, when you got 600 pounds laying on you, what seems like every single play, but schematically, Jim Schwartz can do things to offset that.
Sure.
He can move the opposite tackle, over in a 1 or a 2, which doesn't allow that center to turn back.
See, now you're going to start to make too much sense again.
Come on, man.
That's not what they do.
I get it.
You're going to start to make too much sense again. That is not what they do.
Mike, if I see that.
Back in 2017, they had success. They won a Super Bowl, doing what they do. And so Jim Schwartz, he's going to do what he does because that's what he's been taught. That's what he grew up doing, and that's what he's been taught. Coaches do what they're taught.
So if the players aren't performing and the players aren't executing, it's solely on the players, okay?
No.
Because listen, I'm gonna tell you right now. Listen, we had a great defensive line, but under Bud Carson, you know what happened? Bud Carson used me that first year the way that Jim Johnson used Brian Dawkins. Okay, right. When Jim Johnson wanted to blitz, guess who he sent? Brian Dawkins. He had 3 linebackers on the field, but guess who he sent?
Yep.
The guy that he trusted. He put him in position. See, coaches have the ability to scheme in a way where they can put their most dominant player in a position to succeed.
Sure.
Because if you give them one-on-one and you put them in the right position, then they can win the majority of their battles. Okay.
I agree.
So then we can talk about Jim Johnson is who he is, but if you got a Fletcher Cox and this guy goes into the game and he's fresh, and that teams are going to consistently double team him, then scheme him.
Yeah.
Scheme him in a way that gets him one-on-ones. Put him in a position to win. And now you begin to dictate as a defense to the offense from a protection standpoint. But if you're just going to line up and put Fletcher in a 3 every single time, and think that they're not going to figure out how to take him away, now you got a guy that's fighting a battle that he can't win. And he's got inept linebackers behind him who don't know, what holes they fit in. They don't play aggressive. They don't read properly, on play action pass. They're all up in the line and the tight ends are running behind them. I'm watching it. There's just so much going on in the game. And I sit there and I got a bucket and I'm just throwing up the entire game watching these guys out here trying to play, man. It makes no sense whatsoever because the game of football really is not that complicated. It's really not that hard. It really isn't. In my opinion, Mike, it's just not. You can't say to yourself, hey, this is who I am and this is how we run our system. And if it doesn't work, it's on the players. That's bad coaching. That's grounds. Didn't we fire Chip Kelly for that same thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Have at it.
So, we made a couple of references to the Super Bowl team. Are we Super Bowl hungover? That's like passe.
No, KB.
No.
This is not a good football team.
No, but we shouldn't even talk about the Super Bowl team with 2020. Like some of the guys are still on the team, but dude, that's history. Right now.
The Eagles got 1 Super Bowl in the modern Super Bowl era. Okay. The city of Philadelphia ain't gonna stop talking about that Super Bowl no time soon, man. Because that's what we as fans have to hang our hats on, man. They're not gonna stop. Now, I don't think the players.
This season.
I get you. I get you, but I don't think this current team still has a Super Bowl hangover because there's been so much turnover over the last 3 years. When I look at this roster and I look at this team, okay. There's a couple of positions that really trouble me. I was really excited, when they brought in a new wide receivers coach. I was really excited when they brought in a new defensive backs coach because I felt like for the first time you got 2 guys that played in the league that's been coaching for a while, that has some cachet with them, that can help these guys become better players fundamentally. Okay. I don't see the change. I don't see the change at the wide receiver position. I see guys running routes. I don't see stems. I don't see double moves. I don't see guys setting routes up. Now, Mike, I got to ask the question, because if you go and you bring another wide receivers coach in, and what is this, the third wide receivers coach that the Eagles have had since Doug has been here? Okay. Is it the coaching, or is it the system?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. The guy that they brought in, Moorhead, he's a guy that built himself up in the NFL. Wasn't a draft pick, or certainly wasn't a high draft pick. Wasn't highly touted, but he was able to go to Indianapolis and get a few years out of not a whole lot of talent. His dad was what's his name? Zeke.
Oh, don't get me.
Zeke yeah, you guys know Zeke Moorhead. Played for Chicago.
Emory Moorhead.
Emory Moorhead. There you go.
Yes.
I knew KB coming with it. So Emory Moorhead played for that's his son, who's the wide receivers coach. I don't know if it's the system. I don't know if it's the coaching or what. This offense just does not operate smoothly and working like in the rhythm and in the timing that you want to see offenses work. And I would say that there's a whole lot of things. And I think it begins with an offensive line that's not playing that well, and it all starts to break down from there. It all starts to break from there. If you don't have bigs that are going to win, it's hard to win. If you don't have a quarterback that plays well, it's hard to win. And just basic football.
Well, listen, I said during the I said, hold on one second, Keith. And just hold that thought. I remember I tweeted during the game, I was like, the Eagles are being dominated in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I said, if they can't fix that, I said it at halftime, man. If they can't fix that, they have no shot at winning the game. They were dominated on the defensive side of the ball, because every time you turn around, Gallman was running like a man possessed. The linebackers didn't want none. Rodney McLeod's the only guy that's going to come up and put his hat on you. Jalen Mills, is a safety playing, a corner playing safety. So he didn't really want to hit nobody unless they don't see him, And then on the offensive side of the ball, you had the offensive linemen being dominated, because the minute that Doug went strictly pass, they began to play with the protections, So in the broadcast, the broadcasters talked about, the running backs missing blocking assignments. Okay.
Yeah.
But, when you delve into it a little deeper, what you begin to see is they would give the offensive line a look, and they would get the protection that they wanted. And then at the snap of the ball, they would disguise it. And at the snap of the ball, they would do something different. And it totally screwed up, blocking scheme, and the protection. And what they did is they made sure they did it in a way where they got Jason Kelsey one-on-one against a bigger defensive tackle, and he was just getting ragdoll. Every time you turn around, the guy was running right up the middle, right at Carson, right at him, and I think the world of him, man. But they got dominated in the trenches. And when you get dominated in the trenches, you have no shot at winning those games. And the saddest part, KB, is that every other team that they're going to play, they're watching that same film.
Yeah.
And their objective is going to be to come in and treat this Eagle offense and this Eagles defense the same way that the Giants treated them.
I'm curious your thoughts, though. You touch on a lot of good stuff and you make a lot of good points. What's the solution?
I think we've evolved into a place from an emotional intelligence standpoint. That's one of the things that Jeffrey, made a point of when getting Chip out of here. I think that's part of it, that we don't coach players as hard as we should, because a lot of these coaches aren't necessarily old school, and they're trying to make sure that they don't lose players rather than coaching them hard and holding their feet to the fire. I think the other thing is the salary cap situation is kind of, ruined the game from the standpoint that, once you make the active roster, depending on how many years you have vested, you're going to get 100% of your contract. Okay. Now, as a player, I would have loved to have that. Okay. But from how you manage your player standpoint, when a player has no fear of being cut and they know that they're going to play, because you create, this, you create this lax atmosphere. I've talked about it 1,000 times on this show and in other interviews. So I can remember having a bad game, coming in, looking at my locker on Wednesday morning. There's socks, shoes, drawers, and T-shirts in my locker. And I'm like, whose stuff is this? It's like, oh, they working out linebackers today. Okay. In today's NFL, you don't have the ability to have that kind of accountability for your players, because you're not going to cut a guy in week 7 and pay him, week 8 through 16. Just, you're going to keep him on the roster because you paid him. Now he got to be really, 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 really bad, or he got to be a young guy who don't get the benefit of that. So to me, those are the things. And I don't know. Maybe Doug is chewing their behind over there. Maybe their coaches are chewing their behind. For some reason or other, the message isn't getting through, because I don't know how you get a week off. I don't know how you get a bye week and come up and show up and play like they played last week. They had every reason to come in just frothing. And all the conversation and chit-chat leading up to the game, oh, we're ready, we're rested, blah, blah, blah. And then they got out there and laid the egg. Half of them looked like they were still on bye week during the game.
I think itself also, are they a team? And when I say are they a team, where it's not us against you. A lot of people, Philadelphia used to talk about, the defense. When we were the Buddy Ryan defensive guys, didn't like the offensive guys, and Buddy only cared about defense. That was far from the truth. We were a team. And, even 2017, when they won the Super Bowl, that was a team. Now, because you win as a team and you lose as a team.
You got muted, man. You just talking away and I can't hear you. I listen.
Referrals.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
No, okay. Let me. Long story short, I was like, what happened to the team that goes out there and win, regardless of the situation? I know earlier you said Doug Peterson doesn't want to hear about injuries, and I concur. With that. But where's the leadership on that team that said, well, if we need 5 turnovers to help this team win this week, so be it. If we need 5 touchdowns, this week, so be it. Whatever it takes to win the football game. When I learned that lesson back in 1991, when we had 5 starting quarterbacks. The defense helped being number 1 across the board, but we went 10-6 and barely missed the playoffs by the tiebreaker. You can be successful.
Yeah.
But you have to, figure out ways to get it done. But that doesn't come from without. That comes from within. That locker room, those guys hold everybody accountable. That's where the leadership comes in. There's accountability comes in. And what happens this Sunday against the Cleveland Browns, the Eagles got to come out with a W if they have true leadership on that team. The Browns are beatable, but they're probably looking at Philadelphia saying, man, we're going to get them too. You don't ever want to be that team. But unfortunately, right now, that's where we are, and only they can change that.
Interesting, because I've talked about this in the past. I think one of the biggest mistakes they made was letting Malcolm Jenkins walk out of the building. One of the biggest mistakes that they made was not re-signing Chris Long, even in a minimized capacity. When you look on the offensive side of the ball, I'm not sure who the leaders are. Jason Peters, looks like a guy, who is a leader. Lane Johnson looks like a guy who is a leader. But what I know about leaders, guys, is that if you're trying to lead from a vocal standpoint and you're not being productive, then your voice has no weight. Okay. And everybody on that team over the first 9 weeks of the season has had their share of bad play. Yeah. Okay. So how do you extrapolate a leader? And I think that Howie made a big mistake. I think he overestimated, the team's ability even Doug's ability to lead this team, because no matter how good the coach is, if you don't have players on your team that are just, straight up leaders, guys that show up week in and week out, that are productive week in and week out, then you have no leadership. Roddy McLeod tried to take up that role, and he still does. I applaud him for doing that.
Yeah.
But is his play consistent enough week in and week out that when he speaks, that all the young guys around him hears him? Give me a leader at the linebacker position. Okay.
Listen, this is something that this team struggles with. They don't have those guys. And to me, that's a huge void in this football team, a guy that can stir the pot. When I looked at the New York Giants and in both games, this kid, Jabril Peppers, the safety, man, and he's also a returner. But he seems to know how to get everybody on that defense cranked up. And people like that, you have to have. They have to be a part of the team, because they are guys who can get everybody fired up, everybody going in the right direction, and everybody just reaching a little bit more to give you a little bit more. And you're right, Malcolm was a guy that could do that. And guys listen to Malcolm. Guys love Malcolm. And, yeah, that's a big loss.
That gets to be contagious, what you're describing, Mike.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's a good thing.
Yep. Yeah, you want guys like that can stir the pot and get everybody going. And to your point, I don't really believe that guy is on the roster right now.
Well, my goodness,
because then you don't have to worry about hurting somebody's feelings, because you see it every day where the media doesn't see. He's that guy is always there, studying his plays, getting extra study film in, working hard on the field. That's going to automatically give you success on Sunday when you're already setting that up. Correct. Instead of just sitting around running your mouth and you're not making plays to back it up, then you're not doing a whole lot of these other things also. It's hard to follow that. Right. But, and leaders cannot be made by the media or by the coaching staff. Nope. That comes from the locker room. Yep. That's where that comes from.
It also, Keith, it takes a lot off of the coaching staff when you have people like that. At this level, you shouldn't have to have a coach that's going to give you a fire and brimstone type of speech for you to play your best football. At this level in your career, when you get to the NFL, it shouldn't require all of that. When it's time to play on Sunday, you should be able to bring it with your best on Sunday. Do everything that you need to do during the week so that you're at peak performance on Sunday. And evidently, that's not happening. And part of that is that you don't have, in my opinion, the leadership in the locker room that this team needs to be successful.
Well, listen, I think that somebody just posted up here, say 8 captains on the team and no leader.
That's what I'm saying. You can't make them captains.
Listen, you got captains. That doesn't mean
that don't mean that. I got a C on my jersey. I'm a captain.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they are there. That you've got a guy that when he starts down the hill, everybody's going to follow him down the hill.
Listen, I tell you what. When I watch this team, the thing that bothers me the most is they don't have enough dogs, man. They do not have enough dogs. When you watch them tackle on defense, they just trying to lay on people and get them down on the ground. They're not trying to hit them, to send a message. Listen, Brandon Graham is a guy, and I messaged him this week, because, they're talking about how good of a year he's having, 7 sacks through 8 games, and he's never had double-digit sacks. And I sent him a message. I was like, man, listen, I've been one of those people that felt like you'd never be a double-digit sack guy, but you close. Good luck. I would love to have to eat my words, by the time the season is over. Okay.
Right.
I didn't say it because I don't want him to be a double-digit guy, but he's playing at a high level when you watch him play, and he's a guy that's got some dog in him. Okay. When I look at the rest of the roster, when I look at the rest of the defense, Darius Slay got some dog on him out there at the corner. I don't see any other dogs on the field, man. I see puppies. You can't win in the NFL with puppies, man. You got to have some of them pit bulls. It's just, this drooling foam and, this just is hanging off their chin and whatnot, and they want to destroy something, and I just don't see it. When you look back at 2017, they had some dogs on that team, man.
Hey, man, listen, what I thought about this the other day watching the game or doing the Giants game when their quarterback was running the ball. I was thinking, man, he would have gotten blown up. Guys like that crew that we had back in the day, they would have tried to decap this kid just to make sure if he runs the ball, you got to make sure that he feels it, that you give him a deterrent for running the ball. A quarterback shouldn't be comfortable that he can just run the ball and, get tackled and then go right back to the huddle. It should be a little more than that.
Well, because he knows, Mike, he knows that, once he breaks the line of scrimmage and he gets away from the big boys, he knows that those guys on the back end don't really want none. I mean, he was running like a man possessed. Like, I'm going to the end zone, and there ain't nothing that you can do to stop it. This is the other thing. This is the other thing about the quarterback run and this RPO and read option thing that I don't quite understand about defensive coordinators in the NFL. Okay, so when you're running RPOs or you're running read options, okay, at that point when the quarterback sticks the ball in the running back's belly, he is no longer protected by the rules that govern him in the pocket. He's now a runner.
He's a runner.
So why would you not force him every single time to hand the ball off? Because I'm going to take my defensive end and I'm going to say when he puts it in the belly, disregard the running back altogether. Blast the quarterback every single time, okay? Because by the time you get to halftime, he's going to go to the offensive coordinator. I don't think we need to run that no more. They're just like killing me, man. I can't take too many of those hits.
That's
the way the defense is.
You got to start to realize we come from a different brand of football. we come from a different brand. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, but I'm listen. Why not? Because I'm not letting Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones and all these quarterbacks that want to be high school, college read option quarterbacks. Man, you when you come down that line with that ball, okay, you might pitch it or you might hand it, but you're gonna take something else with you back to the huddle, and sooner or later you're gonna get tired of taking them shots. Your head coach, your offensive coordinator, and your quarterback coach is going to see you getting beat to a pulp, and they're going to be like, we can't run that and keep this guy healthy. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all fair in the game of football.
But all of those quarterbacks that you mentioned, you see them doing that every week, and there's no deterrent. There's no recourse.
Man,
I'm Taylor that same question, Seth. And I said, we could have ran right after we ran the Cunningham. He said, I'd have sacrificed. Y'all can have a big play before I get a free hit on Randall Cunningham. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. No, that wouldn't work.
Right. If he's the most important player on the field, okay, in the crux of the game right now, they're just like, okay, we want to protect the quarterback. You get anywhere near the quarterback's feet or anywhere around the quarterback's knees, you get a 15-yard penalty. You can't have the benefit of both things. You can't say, oh, we're going to protect the quarterback, because this is the thing that pissed me off about how they used to handle RG3 and how they used to handle Cam. They get out the pocket, and because they didn't want to slide, they're eligible to be beat down, so they got beat up, But now you let Tom Brady get out of the pocket and you get anywhere near him, they're going to throw the flag, okay? So now, if the read option, okay, and all these plays where the quarterback is handling the ball and he's got a triple option, he can either give it to the running back, he can run it himself, or he can, fake the run and get outside and throw it. Now he's a running back. That's what the league has said. Yeah. And if that's the case, then you know what? I'm going to make him pay the price every single time that he decides to run the football. Every time.
Sure.
Every time. Because the owner's looking at this and he's saying, oh my God, I'm paying that guy $35, $40 million a year. And he's getting beat up like that. Oh, no. He gonna get on the phone and call the GM. The GM gonna get on the phone and call the head coach, and the head coach gonna be on his headset, be like, "Don't run that anymore."
Yeah, it's a different age.
Hey, but everything is eligible, man, when you're trying to win football games, man. And when you're playing against a quarterback, like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, and all that, you've got to, I'm willing. It's like you said, Keith, with LT. I'm willing, to give a big play if I can get a shot on Randall. Well, you know what? I'm willing to ride with my linebackers and my defensive tackles to handle that inside dive. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna eliminate that guy from getting in my secondary and dancing and making us look foolish. And you take care of that at the line of scrimmage, because when he goes like that and he rides him and hit him right upside his head every single time.
Man, what would Randall have done in this? Oh my goodness.
Oh, Randall would have threw it, man. Randall wasn't taking the hits, man.
I'm just talking about this day and age where you got this read option and you give him a chance to get on the perimeter with this read option, where you're taking away part of the defense with the fake to the halfback. He would have been lethal.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Ultimate weapon. He'd be a double ultimate weapon in today's game. Yeah.
It's just, and the way that Jim Schwartz plays his defensive ends, I cry about it. Everybody cries about it, is that when you get play away, the defensive ends, they crash because they're trying to take away the cutback, and I think the one of the broadcasters said, that Jim Schwartz was really concerned about plays away, misdirections, and Daniel Jones running the football. And I said to myself, I'm like, it's not that complicated, okay? When the play goes away, tell your damn defensive end to stay home. It's easy. Anything that comes back to you, he's sitting there waiting on it, But how many times do we see fake dive right and Daniel Jones bootleg back or read option with flow to the left side, and he pulled the ball and Brandon Graham is down on the dive, Now, if you want to do that, that's fine. But then what you do is you take the linebacker on that side and
you wrap him around.
Yep. But you got the run, you got the defensive end and the linebacker trying to play the B gap and the cutback. It makes no sense structurally. What they do on defense makes no sense whatsoever, and it drives me crazy just to watch it.
And also, are they studying? Because he ran for 80 yards on that play. The first time. Certainly it's not going to work the second time we play them. Yet it was just as successful the second time. So how much studying are they actually doing?
If you go back and look at that play, I think you'll see that TJ Edwards, the linebacker, did come around, but they had a tight split with one of the receivers, and he blocked down on TJ. And that was, I think, the block that sprung Daniel Jones. So I think they had plans for it, but I just don't think they were able to, again, execute their game plan.
Okay, so listen, me and Clyde have ran that stunt a million times. Okay, I can line up right now and run it. Okay, the one thing,
right?
Hey, listen, Mike, the one thing that you can't do if you're going to run it that way is that you can't scrape wide to the line of scrimmage. Okay, the way I was taught to do it, when the defensive end crashes, you want to scrape right off his behind. Now that tight split doesn't have an opportunity to block back on you. And if you really want to get jiggy with it, come up there and turn your back to him.
Yeah.
Now it's a block in the back penalty.
That's the move.
Like, anytime they would go X tight or Y tight, on the tight end side, Z tight, nasty. Z nasty. Anytime they go Z nasty, I would turn my back to him. I'm like, you can run that damn toss if you want to. It ain't getting outside, because you're either going to have to block me in the back or I'm going to make the play for a loss.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers, Jeff. A wide receiver, how about a nice forearm to the chin? Next time you want to block down, I handle that too.
Well,
it's embarrassing to get blocked by a wide receiver. No offense, Mike, but with a linebacker or a wide receiver, that's embarrassing.
Hey, listen. All wide receivers ain't created equal. Now I done played against some wide receivers. They line Art Monk up there a couple of times. There was no forearm to the chin against Art Monk. Now, come on.
No.
Now some of these guys.
Urban Fryer either. Urban Fryer.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a different dynamic, But I get what you're saying. But when I turn my back, what does that do? That puts me in a situation where I've set the edge and I've taken away their ability to break contain. That guy, that Z Nasty is there just to seal you, and all he's got to do is put his hands on your back because you got your back to him, and there's nowhere at all. There's nowhere for him to go. He's got to just let you go and go to the next guy.
Yep.
And the running back and the blocking scheme is counting on him to seal you inside. So now when I flash up the field, the player is dead. I just made a tackle for a 4 or 5 yard loss.
I think you need to be sharing all of this wisdom in somebody's coaching staff.
Man, listen, I'm telling you, I don't think that. I think I'm too aggressive for football today, man. I mean, you see, I'm getting worked up. I'm getting worked up right now. KB, when I was in Buffalo, man, we were doing one-on-one drills, the linebackers against the running backs. So we go, 5 minutes, pass coverage and 5 minutes blitz pickup. Man, I was so heated, man. And they only gave us a short period of time. So I'm out there, I'm coaching. My voice is like 100 octaves over everybody else. I'm cussing and going on. And then I realized, I'm like, man, they don't coach like that no more.
The players like, what you worked up about?
They're trying to figure out what's wrong with you, man.
Exactly, Quick. Exactly.
Screaming?
They was looking at me like, man, what the hell's wrong with Coach? He about to have a stroke over there,
Yeah, man.
But that's that competitive side.
You can't play this game, like we quote Woody Hayes. Woody Hayes used to say, I can't recruit a linebacker that's going to tackle somebody with a smile on his face. He said, I need linebackers that got to bring a nasty attitude.
Right.
But you cannot play a game of football, especially professional football, but any level, without passion and being into it.
And I also believe that, a defense and an offensive coordinator, whatever their disposition is, that's the disposition that, the players that they coach, they assume that disposition. But it was just nasty, I mean, he didn't want to just beat you. He wanted to mentally, physically, psychologically, and spiritually demoralize you,
Yep.
And that's the way we played. When I came up to make a tackle, I didn't want to just get you on the ground. I wanted to send a message that if you bring your behind this way, this is what you're going to get all day today. So you better talk to your offensive coordinator. You better talk to your quarterback about running that play again. Because if you come over here, you're going back to the huddle with a headache. Now, when I look at Doug Peterson is a calm, cool, and collected guy. As a head coach, you got to be that way. But sometimes as an offensive coordinator, you can't have that kind of mentality. As a defensive coordinator, I look at Jim Schwartz and I listen to him. Everything is calm and cool. And he comes across as this highly intellectual type of guy. Okay. You can't, your players can be intellectual and calm, but when somebody trying to take their head off, where's the dog in them? I don't see no barking. All I see is puppies that's panicking. That's like, hey, coach, what's going on out here? No. You can change the whole mentality of the game with your disposition. But if their disposition is to be a little even keel, football's not a game to be played in an even keel type of manner. And that's the thing that bothers me the most is that, they got dominated on Sunday. And when you get dominated, that's, my manhood against your manhood. I get it. You can't win every single battle, but as a man, you ain't going to whoop my ass but once or twice. Okay. That ain't going to happen. No. The pride inside me ain't going to let that happen but once or twice.
Hey, Seth, I got to ask you one thing before we run out of time. The score on Sunday was 21-11. We scored touchdowns. It's 21-17. Why don't we kick the extra point and make it a, field goal game? And we go for two. I tweeted that out during the game. That's one of the reasons why I don't have any more hair. What? Come on, Doug. You're taking the momentum away from your football team.
Here is my post game press conference notes on Doug Peterson, and that question is the first one that I wrote because one of the guys asked him that same question. Okay, his answer was, "Hey, listen, I trust my guys upstairs. Okay, and this is what we made the decision to do." Okay, so now we get back to the data analytics, and we get back to the book, and we get back to the guys that are upstairs that are giving him these probabilities on if you go for it and you make it, the probability of winning the game moves to this or this. Okay, the problem I don't have a problem at all with data analytics. Even though I'm old school, I don't have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is coaches that begin to outwardly talk about, how they use them, because then the problem becomes when you have data analytics and the numbers and your guys upstairs tell you that this is what you should do. When it doesn't work out, who's accountable for it? Who do you hold accountable? Oh, the number said to do. Well, the number said to do it didn't work out, so it didn't work out, so it ain't nobody's fault. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. You the head coach, you made the decision.
That's right. And he's there today taking all the bullets. So no one even knows who those guys are upstairs. But they are paid to give him that type of information. But if it doesn't work, Doug stands there and take the bullets.
That ain't right.
Reality.
Okay. So
it's 21-19 now, and we're gonna get the field goal to win the game. But you got to feel your team and know your team, man. We're playing. We're fighting up.
Not only that,
we finally got a 3-point game.
Not only that, the time on the clock. For me, I want to consider everything. Mm-hmm. But you got these guys, KB. You got these guys who are the analytics guys who you pay a lot of money, and so they factor into the decision making.
Hey, listen, I will tell you this. I think that when I watch Doug Peterson coach and his overly aggressive manner, how he goes for it on fourth and short, at midfield plus, how he wants to go for it on the 2-point conversion every time. When I look at Carson Wentz play, he's a microcosm of what you see in Doug. Because he stands in the pocket when he knows he should get rid of the ball. He's a chance taker. He's a gambler. He's always he will never admit that a play is dead and that he has to give up on it. He's always trying to make something out of nothing. Isn't that how Doug coaches? They're a microcosm of each other. That's why I said when you look at a coach and you look at their personality, the team is going to take on the personality of the coach. And isn't that so evident when you look at Carson Wentz and how he plays? He'll try to throw in the tight windows. He'll take shots down the field when he shouldn't take them. He's inaccurate, when he does have guys open. Doesn't that kind of describe how Doug calls plays and coaches the team sometimes?
It's not.
I can see Mike's like there he go, making sense again. All right, before we wrap the show, I got a caller. He's gonna come on, and he's got a question for us. Brian, welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. What's your question? Be brief.
Seth, what's up, man? I called in 2 weeks ago. By the way, it's an honor, KB, Mike Quick. It's an honor to be on the show. But Seth, I'm back, man. I asked you a couple weeks ago. I said, where do we go from here, right? And you told me, hey, don't throw in the towel yet with Wentz. Well, he had a bye week. He had time to prepare. The dude went 21 for 37. He had 56% QB rating. He was outplayed by Daniel Jones. I mean, he's actually been outplayed by every quarterback that he's played this year. DiNucci, Roethlisberger, obviously they're undefeated, but I could go on. We got Cleveland, Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona coming up. I mean, do we ever win another game, right? Is it Hurts time? So I'm asking you again, where do we go from here, Seth?
Well, Brian, thanks for your question. I'm gonna send it to Mike because he's obviously close to it. Then I'm gonna give it to Keith, and I'm gonna let him, give his input, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think, and then we're gonna wrap the show, my friend. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, for me, it's like your kids. You can't get rid of them. So you just got to keep loving him and keep pouring into him and hope that he comes around. It's not that he doesn't have the talent, because I've seen it. I've seen him play well. I don't know how the rest of this season is gonna turn out. I don't know how well he's gonna play down the stretch, but I'm hopeful that he'll play better, and that's all I can say. You're right. He's nearly every quarterback, and probably every quarterback that they played against has outplayed Carson. But I have seen him play well, and so if Seth told you last week, don't give up yet, I understand that. I can't give up because this is my team. I want to see him do better, and I'm going to stay behind. I'm going to stick with him. And every time I watch him play, there's nothing but positive coming from me. So if that helps him at all, then he's going to play better. He's going to play well. But that's all I got. KB.
No. Up on Carson Wentz. I ran something myself back in September before the season even started. I said, who are my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL going? Believe it or not, on my list, I had Carson Wentz. But I said, I'm going to have to change this list come December. And I said that back in September. So that being said, no, it's not time to give up on Carson Wentz. I mentioned it earlier in the show. I would condense down the package. Me and Doug would be having conversations that what do you feel comfortable with? What do you do well? And we're going to call a smaller set of plays, and we're going to rep them over and over and over till we get good. And I don't care what they see on Sunday, knowing what's going to happen, but we're going to be successful on these smaller amount of plays and get him confident again. And I believe he is the answer. He's still our future quarterback. He's only been here 5 years. I think he should be here for at least another 5. If, like Mike said, he comes back to being that successful quarterback we've seen in the past. As far as Jalen Hurts goes, not yet. He hasn't had any preseason game. That's unfair to Jalen. Every time he's gotten the game, for the most part, my language, he's a peed down his leg. I haven't really seen anything. And that's unfair to Jalen to put him in a position such as that. So to put Jalen Hurts in there, no, not right now. No.
Well, this is my take. I think that the Eagles are married to Carson because of, they made him the franchise guy. They paid him as such. And they allowed Nick Foles to walk away without any compensation. They felt like that was the right thing to do rather than package him up, and get something for him. What I know about the game is a meritocracy. The best players are supposed to play. And that should be biased from the quarterback right down to the 53rd man on the roster. I've been in situations, I've been on teams, I've been around the game long enough to see that when wide receivers struggling, catching the ball, Nelson Aguilar a couple of years ago, what did the Eagles do? They sat him down for a week. They deactivated him for a week, and then they brought him back. It created some clarity for him, and it was a come to Jesus moment for him, in my opinion. When DBs are struggling and they're getting torched, you've seen it with Sidney Jones a couple of years ago. They took him out the game and they sat him down. When an offensive lineman is struggling and he's getting beat like a drum every single play, what do? They take him out of the game. Okay, so if you're not performing up to the level that you're supposed to perform up to, you get pulled out of the game in every position except for the quarterback position. And in my opinion, that's wrong. Because even though coaches don't treat all players the same, I get that and I understand that. But what is the message that you send to your team when your quarterback plays like crap for 9 weeks in a row and you never take him out of the game? You never send the message that you got to play better. It's not fair to this team that Carson Wentz gets to stand up in front of the media every week and, with his normal quotes. I got to do better. I got to be better. I will be better. But yet and still, he has not been better. Okay. Now, Jalen Hurts might not necessarily be ready. I agree. And I think they do Jalen Hurts a disservice, Keith, because every time they put him in the game, they leave Carson in the game. They move him out the wide receiver. So you're basically playing, 10 on 11 because you're not going to throw Carson the ball, unless you throw him a lateral and he's going to throw it down the field. But Jalen Hurts has had, probably 30, 40 plays throughout the year, and he's only thrown two passes. One of them was complete for an 18-yard gain. Okay. So why haven't you expanded his playbook? Because you can motivate Carson a little more by giving Jalen Hurts a little more role and a little more latitude to actually throw the ball, because he can throw the football. He is an accurate quarterback. Okay, so you have to heat up the psyche of every player on your roster, and to me, your quarterback isn't exempt. And if your feeling is that, you know what, hey, we can't do that because it might mess with the psyche and we don't want to lose him, then you know what, in the process of your evaluation of Carson Wentz being a franchise quarterback, somebody dropped the ball because he's not mentally tough enough to deal with the competition of the other position. He's not mentally tough enough to deal with, hey, I might get pulled out, okay? And if he can't deal with that, then he certainly can't deal with the pressure of the game. Okay, I learned that from Buddy. Buddy would get in your business throughout the week because he wanted to see what you was made of, because if he could rattle you during the week, then he knew he couldn't count on you during the game. So he ran you off. Okay? So when you talk about Carson and where we go from here, there has to come a time where if he keeps playing the way he's playing, that the Eagles are going to have to make the decision that we're going to put together a package for Jalen, and we're going to give him, 2 series, 3 series of games and let him play. And if that's not enough to motivate Carson to, get it together, I don't know what is. Okay? I don't know what is.
Round picks not to play, right? If you draft somebody in the second round, I thought when they drafted him in the second round, they were, like you just described, they were going to have a package, like similar to what New Orleans does with Tyson Hill. They're the package for him. So to take some hits off of Carson Wentz, he can throw it and run it. But like I said, no training camp, it's just not going to work this year.
I think subconsciously there is a fear of putting Jalen Hurts on the field and giving him an expanded playbook and him having success. Because there's already a bunch of fans, just like Brian and some of the other people that are talking here. They're saying, hey, it's time to put Jalen Hurts in the game. Okay, then they're going to create all over again the Nick Foles phenomena. You know what I'm saying? Because if they put him in and he starts to succeed, so the best way for that not to become a reality or a possibility, don't even give Jalen the opportunity to throw the ball. Don't give him the opportunity to have massive success. When he comes in the game, defenses load the box with 9 people, 0 coverage behind him, because they know he ain't gonna do nothing but run it. So Keith, it ain't him peeing down his leg. He don't stand a chance. You can't run the ball against a 9-man front, man.
He's not leg when he fumbling his snaps and stuff like that. That's why I said that.
Hey, listen,
he's nervous. Hey,
Jason Kelce had a lot of low snaps the last 2 weeks, so I'm not gonna put it all on him. But at the end of the day, this team's got a lot of problems and a lot of issues, man. And I did not see them coming out of the bye week performing like they performed last week. But if they couldn't get it together with a bye week and they couldn't get it together, they haven't made the jump in the improvement. I find it hard. Now, I'm always going to root for them. I want them to see them do well. But when I look at the Browns, the Packers, the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals, I don't see them winning one of those games. And then they got the Washington football team again. Alex Smith is starting to find his rhythm, and that defensive line ain't no joke. That defensive line in Washington is better than what they faced against the Giants. And if the Cowboys make the decision to leave this kid that they got in there playing quarterback in there now instead of putting Andy Dalton back in the game, that gives them, a better chance of winning footballs, and the defense is playing better. So realistically, when you look at this, how many games do you think the Eagles can win? I mean, listen, I'm a homer, but I'm a homer realist. I look at football from a real standpoint. I want the Eagles to do well, but I'm also smart enough to look at the situation and the scenario and say to myself, my goodness, there's a possibility that they might not win but maybe 1 or 2 games the rest of the year. That's a frightening thing for Eagles fans. Frightening thing.
I mean, I agree, but that's where the player comes to me. You don't play the game on paper; you play it on the field. And but unfortunately, I'm too old to get in the locker room and play anymore to do something about it. So I'm stuck on the outside looking in. But the Cleveland game, it's winnable. But they're gonna run that football. I've been watching them all year long. and they got Chubb back.
Football.
But they finally got an identity. You know, Baker only threw for 100-some yards. Doesn't matter. They're running the football. That's all he needed, and he can throw when needed. So at least finally Cleveland knows who they are. Hopefully, over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
You went out again. I'm assuming you said hopefully in the next couple of weeks, Doug will figure out who he wants this team to be. we
already got a new identity in 2 or 3 weeks.
We already. How you gonna get a new identity in 2 or 3 weeks? Listen, he's gonna be who he's gonna be. He's gonna try to coach Carson out of this whole thing, and the only way you can coach Carson out of this whole thing is not for him to throw for 200 yards every single game and you rush for 200 yards. The way in his mind that you get him out of it is you let him keep throwing the ball 40 plus times a game, and hopefully he starts making the right decisions. And he's gonna have some good plays, some good quarters, some good halves, but he's also gonna continue to play the way he's played because he's fundamentally broken. And they've got a problem. He's got problems, got issues, man. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Listen, man, we are 20 minutes over. Love you guys.
Gosh, I gotta go eat.
Love you guys. I appreciate your time.
Too, man.
I tell you guys have been on the show before, and I say it, for my viewers, our most valuable commodity is our time, and I appreciate you guys giving me an hour and 20 minutes of your time to talk about the Eagles today, man.
Anytime, brother.
You guys be well. I'll talk to you later. Rest of you guys, I'll see you guys back here next week for another edition of the Seth Joyner Show. As always, take care of each other, be good to each other, but most important, make sure you love each other. Peace.